Hello dear beloved, the testimony I'm going to be sharing with you today was sent by a sister from Japan. She wanted to share her testimony of how God revealed her real identity. This message is not just for her, but for everyone who is born of a woman. Why she decided to share this message is to liberate as many who is still stuck with the lies we have been told about who we are. So if you are listening to this now, I want you to give me a few minutes of your time. By the time you listen to this message to the end, you will come to understand who you truly are. So I beg you not to click off this video. You might be the one to save your family and friends today. Before I share her testimony with you, please, I do love to know where you are listening from in the comment. Also, if you have any personal prayer request, you can write it in the comments section, and we will be honored to pray with you. Now relax and listen to this powerful testimony. Dear Daily Renewal, my name is Kestrel Yamamoto and I'm 23 years old. I live in Sapporo, a city on the northern island of Hokkaido in Japan. My family runs a small ramen restaurant near the Susukino district, and I help them with their website and social media when I'm not doing my own work. I need to tell you about something that happened to me 6 months ago. It's hard to explain, but I'm going to try because it completely changed who I am. I grew up not believing in God. In Japan, that's pretty normal. Most people around me weren't religious in the Western sense. Sure, we'd visit shrines during New Year and temples for certain ceremonies, but it was more tradition than belief. My family was even less religious than most. My grandfather had been a scientist who worked for a pharmaceutical company, and he taught my father to only trust what could be proven in a laboratory. When I was little, my grandfather would tell me that gods and spirits were just old stories people told before they understood science. He'd say, "Kestrel, when you understand how the brain works, you understand why people create gods." So I grew up the same way. I went to school, I got good grades, I studied graphic design at university in Tokyo, and I never once thought seriously about God. When my few Christian friends invited me to church events, I'd politely decline. When missionaries approached me on the street, I'd put in my earbuds and walk faster. But then something happened that I couldn't explain away. It was a Wednesday afternoon in early autumn. I was walking home from the coffee shop where I did freelance design work on my laptop. The air was getting crisp and the leaves on the ginkgo trees were starting to turn yellow. I had my shoulder bag heavy with my computer and I was tired, just wanting to get home to my small apartment. That's when everything changed. The sky above me seemed to split open. Not in a way that anyone else could see. People kept walking past me on the sidewalk, looking at their phones, talking, living their normal lives. But I could see something else. Something beyond the normal world. I saw a huge room made of glass. Not regular glass, but glass that moved like water and reflected light in colors I'd never seen before. The room was full of people, but they weren't normal people. They had wings and they glowed with soft light. Angels, I guess, though I didn't know what to call them at the time. In the center of the room was a massive scroll hanging in the air. It was unrolling by itself, and the angels were reading it and pointing at different parts. Their faces looked concerned. Some were writing things down in books that floated beside them. One angel near the front had silver hair that sparkled like fresh snow in sunlight. She touched the scroll, and suddenly words appeared on it in a language I shouldn't have understood but somehow did. The words said, "Identity stolen." Then the scroll showed images, pictures of people walking around, living their lives, but they had no idea who they really were. They were like people wearing name tags with the wrong names written on them. The scene faded and I was back on the sidewalk in Sapporo. A cyclist rang their bell at me because I was standing in the middle of the path. I moved aside, my heart pounding. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped my bag. That's when I heard a voice. Not out loud, nobody around me could hear it. But inside my heart, clear as anything. It was gentle but serious, like a teacher explaining something important to a student who wasn't paying attention. The voice told me that I'd been lied to my whole life. Not by my family, not on purpose, but lied to nonetheless. The voice said that I had an identity I didn't know about, a true name I'd never heard, and a family history I'd been kept from knowing. I was so confused. I stood there on that sidewalk for probably 10 minutes, just trying to understand what was happening to me. Was I having a mental breakdown? Had I been working too many late nights? But the voice felt more real than anything I'd ever experienced. Over the next few weeks, strange things kept happening. I started taking a different route home from the coffee shop. I'm not sure why, I just felt pulled to walk down different streets. One day, I found myself on a quiet road I'd never been on before. There weren't many shops there, just a few small businesses and residential buildings. That's when I saw it. A small storefront with a sign in the window. The sign had Japanese characters, but also English words underneath. Japanese for Jesus. I stopped walking. I stared at that sign for a long time. It made no sense to me. Japanese for Jesus? That was like saying Buddhist for Muhammad, or atheist for angels. How could you be Japanese and for Jesus at the same time? Everyone knew that Christianity was a Western religion. It belonged to Americans and Europeans, not to us. I should have kept walking. But something made me curious. Maybe it was that voice I'd heard. Maybe it was the vision of the angels and the scroll. Or maybe I was just tired of not understanding what was happening to me. But every time I walked past that store for the next few weeks, it was closed. The lights were off and there was nobody inside. I'd press my face against the glass and look in, trying to see what kind of place this was. One day through the window, I saw a small red book sitting on a table near the entrance. I couldn't read the title from outside, but something about that book made my chest feel tight. 2 months passed. The visions kept coming, not every day but often enough that I couldn't pretend they weren't real. I'd see angels doing different things. Sometimes they were in what looked like a war room, planning strategies. Sometimes they were in gardens that were too beautiful to be on earth. And always, they seemed to be working on something important, something urgent. Finally, one Saturday morning, I walked past that store and the door was open. A small bell chimed as I pushed it. The inside smelled like old books and tea. A young man looked up from behind a counter. He was Japanese like me, but something about him was different. He had this light in his eyes that I'd never seen in anyone before. He smiled at me like he'd been waiting for me specifically. "Welcome," he said in Japanese. "Can I help you with something?" I didn't know what to say. My mouth felt dry. Finally, I managed, "Your sign outside. Japanese for Jesus. What does that mean?" He smiled bigger. "It means exactly what it says. Would you like to sit down? I can explain." We sat at a small table near the window. He brought me green tea without asking if I wanted any. Then he started talking, and everything he said sounded impossible but also somehow true. He told me that he used to think like me. He'd grown up in Osaka in a non-religious family. He'd never believed in God. But then he'd met some people who showed him an old book. A book that had been translated into Japanese a long time ago but that most Japanese people never read. "What book?" I asked. He got up and brought me that little red book I'd seen through the window. He placed it on the table between us. The title said in Japanese, "New Covenant." "This is part of the Bible," he explained, "but not the part that talks about Western churches or European history. This part talks about a Jewish man named Yeshua who lived 2,000 years ago in Israel." "Jesus," I said. I knew that name from movies and from seeing churches in Tokyo. Yes, but his real name was Yeshua. It's Hebrew. And here's what nobody told us. Yeshua wasn't trying to start a new religion. He was Jewish. All his first followers were Jewish. Everything he taught came from the Jewish scriptures. I frowned. But Christianity is for white people, isn't it? It's a Western religion. The young man shook his head. That's what I thought too. But I was wrong. Christianity started in the Middle East with brown-skinned Jewish people. It only went to Europe later. And the message was always supposed to go to every nation, including Japan, including us. He opened the red book and showed me the first page. It listed names: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah. Names I'd heard before but never paid attention to. "This book isn't about Western culture," he said. It's about God's promise to one specific family, the Jewish people, and how that promise was meant to spread to the whole world, including you, including me. I didn't know what to say. My head was spinning. I started meeting with this young man once a week. His name was Hero, and he was patient with all my questions. He never got annoyed when I argued with him or when I said his beliefs didn't make sense. He gave me that red book to take home. I read it late at night when my roommate was asleep. And the more I read, the more confused I became, but in a good way. The book didn't talk about blonde Jesus or European cathedrals. It talked about Jewish fishermen and tax collectors. It talked about a man named Yeshua who claimed to be the Messiah that the Jewish prophets had written about hundreds of years earlier. One sentence hit me hard. Yeshua had told his followers that he was the way to God. Not a way. The way. Like there was only one path and he was it. That seemed arrogant to me at first. But then I thought about the visions I'd been seeing. The angels, the scroll, the message about stolen identity. What if it was true? What if I really had been lied to about who I was? 3 months after I first walked into that store, I met with Hero again. This time his wife was with him. They could tell something had changed in me. I think I believe this, I said quietly. I don't fully understand it, but I think I believe that Yeshua is real, that God is real. Hero's wife smiled. She had kind eyes. Do you want to pray? She asked. I've never prayed before, I admitted. I don't know how. That's okay, Hero said. Prayer is just talking to God. You can tell him what you believe. You can ask him to show you more. You can thank him for Yeshua. But I don't know what words to use. I can help you, Hero offered. I'll say something and if you agree with it, you can repeat it. If you don't agree, just tell me. So that's what we did. Hero would say a sentence and I'd think about whether I believed it. If I did, I'd repeat it out loud. He started, God, I believe you exist. I thought about the visions, the voice, everything that had happened. God, I believe you exist, I repeated. I believe I've been separated from you because of wrong things I've done. I thought about my life, the lies I'd told, the people I'd hurt with my words, the selfishness. I believe I've been separated from you because of wrong things I've done. We went on like this, sentence by sentence, and with each sentence something in my chest felt lighter. Like a weight I didn't know I was carrying was being lifted off. When we finished, Hero and his wife were smiling. Actually, they looked like they might cry happy tears. Do you understand what just happened? Hero asked. I shook my head. Not really. You just became part of God's family. You just found your true identity. And that's when I started crying. Not sad tears, but tears that came from somewhere deep inside. I cried for 10 minutes while Hero and his wife just sat with me quietly. When I stopped crying, I felt different. I can't explain it better than that. Just different. Lighter. More real than I'd ever felt before. In the weeks after that prayer, I started understanding what the voice had meant about stolen identity. I'd spent 23 years thinking I was just Kestrel Yamamoto, a Japanese girl who designed websites and helped in her family's restaurant. That was my identity. That was who I was. But now I understood something deeper. Yes, I was still Japanese. Yes, I was still Kestrel. But I was also something else, something bigger. I was a daughter of God. I belonged to a family that stretched back thousands of years and included people from every country on earth. The voice explained it to me one night. I saw another vision, this time of a huge family tree. The tree had roots that went down deep into the ground, and the roots were labeled with names: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Then the trunk of the tree was labeled Israel. But the branches spread out in every direction, reaching into every nation. One branch reached to Japan, and on that branch I saw my name written. The voice told me that I'd been grafted into this family tree. Even though I wasn't Jewish by blood, I'd been adopted into the family that God had chosen thousands of years ago. Through Yeshua, I'd become part of Israel's story. This blew my mind. I'd always thought Christianity was about leaving your culture behind and becoming Western. But the voice showed me it was the opposite. By following Yeshua, I was finding my true identity, not as a Westerner but as someone connected to the ancient Jewish faith and the God of Israel. One thing Hero had explained to me kept coming back to my mind: the problem of sin. He'd said that every person has done wrong things. Even small wrong things create a barrier between us and God, who is perfectly pure and holy. It's like trying to hug someone while you're covered in mud. You want to get close, but the mud gets in the way. In the old Jewish system, people would bring animals to the temple as sacrifices. The animal's blood would cover the people's sins temporarily. But it was only temporary. They had to keep coming back year after year, bringing more animals. But then Yeshua came. He was different from everyone else who ever lived because he never did anything wrong. Not even once. He was completely pure. And when he died on a cross, his blood did something that animal blood could never do. It permanently removed the barrier of sin for anyone who believed in him. The voice showed me a vision of this. I saw people trying to reach a beautiful city on top of a mountain. But between them and the city was a huge wall made of dark, sticky mud. People would try to climb over it, but they just get stuck in the mud and slide back down. Then I saw a man walk up to the wall. He was glowing with clean, pure light. He pressed his hands against the mud wall, and the mud started covering him instead. It covered his hands, his arms, his whole body. He became completely black with mud. But as the mud covered him, the wall started crumbling. It fell apart until there was nothing left but a clear path to the city. The voice told me, "That man is Yeshua. He took the mud of sin onto himself so you could walk free to God." I finally understood. Without Yeshua, I was stuck. With him, the path was clear. Telling my family was the hardest part. My parents didn't get angry when I told them I'd become a Christian. They just looked confused and worried. "Christianity is for foreigners," my mother said gently. "You're Japanese, Kestrel. This doesn't fit with who we are." "That's what I thought too," I said. But I learned that it's not true. Yeshua's message was always meant for all nations. The first Christians were Asian, not European. My father was more direct. "You've been brainwashed by some cult," he said. "This is what happens when young people spend too much time on the internet." I tried to explain about the visions, but they thought I was having mental health problems. They wanted me to see a doctor. It hurt that they didn't understand. But I also felt peaceful. I knew what I'd experienced was real. I knew the voice I'd heard was real. I knew that the identity I'd found, as someone who belonged to God, was more real than anything else in my life. Now, 6 months later, I understand what that scroll in the angel's hands was showing me. Most people walk around not knowing who they really are. They think their identity comes from their country, their job, their family, their achievements. And those things matter, but they're not the deepest truth. The deepest truth is that we were created by God to be in relationship with Him. We were meant to be part of His family. But sin broke that relationship. It stole our true identity and replaced it with a fake one. When someone believes in Yeshua, something supernatural happens. The barrier of sin is removed. The fake identity is stripped away. And the true identity, child of God, part of His eternal family, is restored. I'm still Japanese. I still love my culture, my food, my language. But now I understand that my Japanese identity fits inside a bigger identity. I'm Japanese and I'm a follower of the Jewish Messiah. Those two things don't contradict each other. They complete each other. Hero told me something powerful last week. He said, "A true follower of God is someone who thanks God and worships Him." You couldn't do that when you were an atheist. But now you can. Now you're living out your true purpose as a human being. He also explained that even people who believe God exists still have a problem if they don't believe in Yeshua. They might pray and try to be good, but they still have that barrier of sin between them and God. Only Yeshua's blood removes that barrier completely. That's why He's not just a teacher or a good example. He's literally the only way to God. Not because God is mean or exclusive, but because sin is a serious problem that requires a serious solution. And Yeshua is that solution. I think about my friends sometimes. Most of them have no idea about any of this. They live good lives. They're kind people. But they don't know about the barrier between them and God. They don't know about Yeshua. And I realize that I have to tell them. Not in an annoying way, not by forcing my beliefs on them, but by living differently, by having that same light in my eyes that I saw in Hero, and by being ready to explain when they ask me what changed. The voice told me something last week. I saw another vision, this time of seeds being planted in soil. The seeds looked tiny and insignificant. But as I watched, they grew into huge trees that spread across entire landscapes. The voice said that every person who finds their true identity in Yeshua becomes like a seed. They might seem small and unimportant, but they carry something powerful inside them. And when that seed grows, it produces fruit that feeds others. And those others become seeds too. And on it goes. The voice showed me that this is how Yeshua's message has spread for 2,000 years. Not through force or politics, but through transformed people living out their true identities and naturally sharing what they found with others. I'm just one small seed in Sapporo, Japan. But I'm part of something enormous. Something that started with Jewish fishermen in the Middle East and has now reached every corner of the world. If you're listening to this and you've never heard this message before, I want to tell you what I wish someone had told me years ago. Your identity is not just your nationality or your job or your family. There's something deeper. You were created by God to know Him and to be part of His family. But wrong things you've done, even small things, have created a barrier between you and Him. You can't remove that barrier on your own, no matter how good you try to be. God provided a way to remove the barrier. He sent Yeshua, who lived a perfect life and died to take your sins onto Himself. When you believe in Him and accept what He did for you, the barrier is removed. You're adopted into God's family. You find your true identity. It doesn't matter if you're Japanese or American or Nigerian or Brazilian. It doesn't matter if you're young or old, rich or poor, educated or not. This message is for everyone. The voice told me to tell you this. Ask God to show you if this is true. Say to Him, God, if you're real, show me who Yeshua is. Show me if this is true. And then pay attention to what happens. I promise you, if you ask sincerely, God will answer. Maybe not the way you expect. Maybe not immediately. But He will answer. Because He wants you to know your true identity even more than you want to know it yourself. Thank you for listening. I know this testimony has blessed you. I want you to know that your identity is in Christ, not in your country. You are a child of the Most High. Know this today and start asking God to reveal who you are. Thank you once again for listening. Before you go, please kindly share this video to your loved ones. Also like this video so that YouTube can show it to many people who need to listen to this message. Also, if you have any testimony you want us to share, don't forget to leave it in the comment. We will pick it up from there. May the peace of the Lord be with you. Amen.